Scott Leadingham, and I am here today with Courtney Flatt, who's joining us from the Tri-Cities. Courtney, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Scott.
Courtney is the correspondent for our Earth Fix team, and I love the tagline for Earth Fix, news fixed on the environment. So whoever came up with that, good job. Courtney, we're going to ask you some questions about dams, salmon, maybe some grizzly bears, oh my, all the fun stuff about the Northwest. So if anyone has any questions along those or similar topics about environmental issues that Courtney covers, go ahead and ask those in the comment section on Facebook if you're joining us live, and we'll try to get to them now or maybe after the live stream today. Courtney, let's jump right into it. You did some reporting this week about a study saying that the Snake River dams, which are a controversial subject for their possible removal and how they deal with salmon, could do well maybe not having hydroelectricity. Like we could do without the power because of alternative energy. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. So when people think about removing the Snake River dams, one of the big debates that's always been on the table is how will we get power for that the dams used to produce. They produce enough each year. Historically, they produced enough each year to power a city about the size of Seattle. So this advocacy group, Northwest Energy Coalition, commissioned a study to see, can we do this? Can we get enough power with renewable energy? And so they found that yes, we can. They say we need to we'd use a mix of renewable energy sources like wind and solar, and things like energy efficiency and carbon pricing, and that we should now be able to take this debate of how will we get power that the dams generated. We should be able to take that debate off the table. Previously, people had thought that we would need to use natural gas, and that's a fossil fuel, so that would be bad. And so the debate here, I think, will continue to be a part of the discussion moving forward. They'll talk more and more about how renewable energy could replace the dams.
So you talk about this advocacy group who is suggesting that dam removal might be possible, or just relying on sources of energy outside of hydropower from the Snake River dams. But let's recognize, of course, that there are many people on the other side of that topic who would advocate greatly for keeping the dams in place and the hydropower that they produce. There's lots of jobs and other economic factors, of course, that come from hydropower. I remember every day I come into work, I see on the side of a barn outside of Colfax a big sign that says "Save Our Dams," relating to the Snake River dams. Talk maybe a little bit about those on that side of the issue who are advocating for keeping the hydropower because of its economic impacts.
Yeah, and so there are a lot of economic impacts. One of the main things that the Snake River dams do is it provides navigation into the port town of Lewiston, Idaho, and it's the farthest inland port in the country, I think. And so that would be one big thing. Farmers worry about irrigation that they get from the dams, and so those are a lot of concerns on that side. On the other side, for removing the dams economically, fishing groups say it'll help increase the number of salmon, and so that would help, and increase recreation. So there are a lot of economic arguments and a lot of reasons that people really do want to keep the dams in place. And so this has been a debate for decades now, and the dams are still here. So we'll have to see what happens in this latest round of talk about it.
So similar to that topic, everything can kind of relate back to, if you're talking about dams, you're also talking about salmon, right? So the Columbia River dams that stretch from upward in Washington down through the Washington-Oregon border out toward Portland. They've been mandated by a recent federal appeals court ruling to spill more water so salmon downstream can be affected and be saved, frankly. So can you talk a little bit about that ruling and some of the impacts that will come about through spilling more water over Columbia River dams?
Yeah, and so they're also going to spill more water over the Snake River dams too. And what this does is it helps young baby salmon get over the dams faster, instead of having to go through fish passage systems or be barged around dams or go through the turbines, which is really bad on fish health. they'll be able to just go over the tops of dams. And so wild fish groups say that this will help. This helps fish survive into the ocean, and if you have more young fish in the ocean, you'll have more adult fish coming back. And so this spill order is part of kind of the same decades long lawsuit over protecting salmon and steelhead in our waterways. And so judges have ordered the government to go back and kind of look at how to protect our salmon, because they say that the government's plan doesn't do enough right now. And one part of that decision is this spilling water over the dams. And so they're going to spill water in the springtime. It'll be from April to mid-June. And yeah, and so opponents say that this will, if there's less water going through the dams, then there's less power, and that it'll cost something like $40 million a year, I think. And so yeah, right now we are gonna spill the water, and it'll be the most water that's been spilt to help salmon. And yeah, that's kind of what happened this week. A lot of fish in the news this week.
There certainly are, and if it's not fish or dams, sometimes it's wolves here in the Northwest. We kind of joke around here that if it's everything relates back to salmon, wolves, and possibly dams. But maybe on another similar topic, grizzly bears. Who doesn't love a grizzly bear? Well, in Washington State, some people are a little leery about grizzlies in the Northwest because they're not really used to them. They were here historically in the North Cascades, but they haven't been around, of course, for most of the last several centuries. So there's a proposal or a study to possibly reintroduce grizzlies to the North Cascades of Washington State. Tell us a little bit about that and who's supporting it.
Yeah, and so this has been another debate that's been going on for a really long time, and we thought that it was kind of going to be it was put on hold, and we thought that the program might end, but in kind of a surprise decision a few weeks ago, Interior Secretary Zinke said that we're going to continue with this program to reintroduce grizzlies into the North Cascades. He used to be a representative in Montana, and so he has dealt a lot with grizzly, or not, I don't know if he's actually personally dealt with grizzly bears, but he knows of grizzly bears, and he says he supports the great bear. And so there's several different options on the table right now. The government's kind of drafting several plans, and they will eventually pick one. There's maybe only a handful of grizzly bears in the Northwest right now, in the North Cascades. And biologists say if we don't reintroduce grizzlies, then this population is going to go extinct. And so it would be, they're looking at reintroducing about 200 grizzlies over 100 years. So it would be a really long time. A lot of biologists support this, but people opposed to it are kind of worried about having another predator on the landscape. The thing is, grizzlies eat a lot of berries. They do obviously eat their meat as well, but they don't hunt. According to biologists, they don't hunt in the same ways that wolves do, and it would be a very slow reintroduction. And so, I mean, who knows if we would actually see grizzlies they're in the North Cascades on a regular basis while we're alive. It would be quite a long time for all that to happen.
Right. Well, as someone who has done a lot of extensive hiking and backpacking throughout the North Cascades and Montana and other areas in and out of grizzly country, I can tell you it would be a very interesting dynamic to see that introduced, but not one that I wouldn't welcome personally, because it would be really interesting to have that as part of the hiking experience to possibly maybe encounter, but not hoping to encounter, but
yeah,
maybe far off in the distance.
Yeah.
Of course, of course. So on that note, though, about grizzly bear introduction back into Washington State possibly, Jansen asked us this question about elsewhere in the Northwest or in Washington State outside of the North Cascades. Is there other known or considered habitat for that possible reintroduction?
Yeah, so historically, grizzlies were kind of had a much larger habitat in Washington. Part of the problem now is that their habitat is super fragmented, and basically the only like really wild places where they could go and have enough space is the North Cascades. And so I don't think that they would really look at bringing grizzlies, close to homes or somewhere where they can't find good food or anything like that. So the North Cascades is kind of the only place, the best bet right now.
Let's circle back real quickly to the salmon topic, not to beat that one to death, but Beverly did ask us, and we want to get just a reminder of how the heck do salmon actually get back upstream past the dams once they've gone down? Just a quick reminder about what that's all about.
Sure, yeah. Salmon have just kind of a really weird journey out to sea and back into their spawning grounds. And there are a lot of fish ladders that they can kind of swim up and go around. There's barging efforts. There's a lot of things that happen to get salmon to and from the ocean to where they spawn and die eventually. But yeah, and there are lots of dams that do actually block their passage, and they can't get around.
Right, the old joke. What did the fish say when it hit a wall? Damn. All right, so done with that one. But we should say, of course, that there is an effort to get salmon past the two highest Columbia River dams, of course, Chief Joseph and Grand Coulee, which don't have any fish passage at the moment. That's a whole other topic about how they might eventually be shipped around those two dams by the Colville tribe. But another topic for another day that we've talked about in the past. Real quickly though, Courtney, and I know we're short on time here, but I want to ask you, you're not a native of the Northwest. As I understand, you came from Texas originally and we're in the Midwest?
Yes,
right.
Yes.
Okay, so about 7 years ago is when you moved up here?
7 years. It's been gone by fast.
Right. Okay. So what's the one thing, you're an environmental reporter. You're out there, literally out there in the environment a lot, outside. What's the one thing that kind of struck you or that you noticed a lot about the landscapes and the people and the environment of the Northwest?
Yeah. Well, one of the things that was really cool to me coming from Dallas is that you can drive in the Northwest, an hour in any direction and kind of see a different landscape. And also there's mountains here, so that's way different. But back home, I'd drive an hour in any direction, I'd still be in Dallas. So that was really cool. People also here, I think, just think about the environment a lot more. Or, I haven't lived in Dallas for 10 years now, so things might have changed a little bit. But they don't think about the environment quite as much or as deeply. When I was growing up, we recycled, and there were Don't Mess with Texas anti-littering campaigns, but that was kind of it. And so back here, it's kind of everywhere, and lots of people just constantly. It's involved in environment is involved in everybody's lives and everything we do. And so yeah, I'm probably rambling, but
No, that makes so much sense. But you're right. That is good advice. Just generally, don't mess with Texas. I think that applies to many facets of life. Courtney Flatt, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been really intriguing to hear about some of the stuff you've been covering. I know you got a big sage grouse and raven story coming up. We didn't get to it, but it sounds really interesting. So I'm going to encourage everyone to check that out later today or throughout the weekend when it's online. Speaking of which, quick plug, nwpb.org is where you can see that and all of other reporting from Courtney and other Earth Fix reporters from around the Northwest. She is at Courtney Flatt on Twitter. I am at Scott Leadingham. And please join us here every week on Facebook to hear more about the reporting and news from around here in the unique Northwest.